The killer phrase was at the end when Kimmel said, "You just don't realize it." Because you see, he's smarter than you, and he needs you to know that. And his ego can't bear that there's someone out there more famous and more influential than him. I got news for you, Kimmel. The last time you mattered, Bruce Jenner still had a
million views. Whereas, as I point out, on ABC, a massive network that comes into your home for free, that you have to make no effort to find, at best, Jimmy Kimmel can get 1.5 million. He needs to have a little self-perspective before going out there and hurling these insults because he looks a little...
What do you get when Greg Gutfeld, the espresso shot of snark, teams up with Megyn Kelly, queen of icy one-liners? You don't just get a roast, you get Kimmel flambeed in primetime grease and plated with a sarcastic bless your heart. Kimmel tried to fire back, but his response hit with the force of a damp napkin tossed in a hurricane. This isn't your average TV feud, this is a 5-star grudge match. Grab your popcorn, because things get delightfully catty in no time.
Point last night, all the other late-night hosts threw a hissy fit. It's too bad Tim Waltz is still grieving, or he could send them all a sack of industrial-strength tampons.
You all know what they saw. They saw what we saw. They saw the frail elderly man who needed help getting off the stage. They're just too chicken shit to tell us about it, because they accurately deduced that he could still be the Democratic nominee, and they don't want to ding him up. Maybe you give Barbara a pass. Who gives a damn what this singer saw or says? But you know what? Jimmy Kimmel happens to be employed by ABC, which happens to have a rather large news organization. And he has been one of President Trump's most vocal critics. Where are you, Jimmy? On vacation? Not good enough. You can still use your thumbs to send out a tweet. You could set the record straight right now, but you won't.
Once upon a studio lot in the surreal circus of late night, Jimmy Kimmel played the role of lovable gesture-cracking celeb jokes and riffing on burritos like a dad at a PTA comedy night. But then, in an odd twist of fate, the guy who once refereed keg stands with swimsuit models locked eyes with his reflection and anointed himself as America's moral compass. That's right, the frat house favorite traded beer bongs for sermons. The shift was so weird it made Mike Pence's comedy attempt look smooth. Cue Greg Gutfeld's dramatic entrance.
True, it was a terrible night for women, children, and for the hundreds of thousands of hard-working immigrants who cut his lawn.
It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go, for healthcare, for our climate.
Picture this, the reigning champ of sarcastic cable commentary clinging to the ratings chart, like it's a bucking bronco, wielding enough irony to make aloe vera blush. Gutfeld didn't just call out Kimmel's new identity, he turned it into a full-blown PowerPoint presentation, complete with a foghorn, flashcards, and probably a confetti cannon. His message: Kimmel's humor had derailed so hard it needed GPS to find its way back.
Last night was the 96th Academy Awards show, and while you might have missed it, there was one clear winner. No, not Oppenheimer. It was sanctimonious leftists for their lead role in pretending they are better than you. Winner number one, Jimmy Kimmel. For the 4th time, Kimmel hosted the Oscars before an adoring crowd of Hollywood stars who laughed and curried favor with the man who wore blackface so many times. Yes, some of the very same celebrities who wanted you to believe they were horrified after yours truly said in 2018 that people used to don dark makeup in order to imitate well-known black celebrities, and it wasn't a big deal. Absolutely ate up the performance by Hollywood darling Mr. Kimmel, whose blackface costumes included his oft-repeated bit as basketball star Karl Malone.
Now, Karl Malone never seen no flying saucer himself, but if he do, that's gonna be a
While Kimmel was busy turning his opening monologues into Twitter thread lectures for the online woke crowd, Gutfeld was shattering records as the anti-late night alternative. No jazz interludes, no manufactured laughs, just bone-dry zingers. That practically came with a fire hazard warning. Kimmel clung to his halo behind a curtain of virtue, while Gutfeld tap-danced through it in circus shoes, flipping off the establishment with every Nielsen bump. Thus began the flamboyant flame war.
Voted against him, and guess what? It was a bad night for everyone who voted for him, too. You just don't realize it yet.
You know what? If I ever cry on TV, it'll be because Maroon 5 put out a new song. But that's it. You big Now,
First up, a diagnosis. Gutfeld claimed Jimmy had developed a rare ailment, moral overcompensation syndrome, a disorder typically affecting ex-edgelords who suddenly grow a conscience 3 awards to. Late, symptoms, preachy bits between dud, jokes, and misty eyes over cue cards masquerading as satire. The prescribed cure, merciless mockery. Gutfeld tore into Kimmel's newfound virtue with all the gentleness of a wrecking ball. In a pottery shop, the guy who once staged viral twerk fails was now moonlighting as a political guru, like a barista who just discovered activism on Instagram. And Gutfeld came armed not just with quips, but a dossier of damning clips and crusty comedy bits. From Kimmel's past, he didn't just roast Kimmel's jokes, he ran a full forensic analysis. The verdict, a former funny man now spewing punchlines that sound like they were outsourced to a policy think tank.
Just this past 2 weeks, they had the Kennedy Center honors the other night where Joe Biden couldn't say Dionne Warwick. He kept calling her Diane, and he didn't know who Barry Gibb was. He kept calling him Billy. You know who else was honored at the Kennedy Center? You know who else? Billy Crystal. Just FYI, do you know who once opened up the Academy Awards in full blackface?
oh,
Billy
yeah.
Crystal. Billy Crystal. And do you know who's going to be hosting the Academy Awards this year? Jimmy Kimmel. Do you know who's worn blackface repeatedly and spoken inner city sort of urban accent saying she needs to darn those socks? Jimmy Kimmel as Oprah, as a fat-suited, black-faced darning socks. Oh,
This is where things went from amusing to masterful. While Gutfeld was slicing with sarcasm like a pro chef, Megyn Kelly arrived wielding rhetorical napalm. Enter Kelly, the poised hit woman of punditry, effortlessly sipping coffee while taking reputations apart like IKEA furniture built without instructions. Gutfeld used a comedic chainsaw to chop through Kimmel's dignity, but Kelly, she put on gloves, picked up the scalpel, and meticulously dissected every ounce of hypocrisy in his persona. No yelling, no drama, just a cold, organized takedown. She sorted through his past like a file clerk labeling folders under K for jokes that soured faster than dairy in the sun. Remember the Man Show? Of course you do, the testosterone spectacle co-hosted by Kimmel and Adam Carolla, where beer and bikinis ruled. It was frat boy TV at its most unfiltered. And now, that same Jimmy lectures the public from his high horse, moral compass in hand, pretending his past never aired in hiatus.
After taking the summer off, he's missed a lot. Kimmel says if you're not vaccinated, you shouldn't get a hospital ICU bed. But I'm not sure if Jimmy was being sincere because he wasn't crying. Anyway, it's just funny hearing someone say, I see you, who nobody actually sees. Oh, look, I don't want to suggest that Kimmel's show has become boring and predictable, but last night during the taping, people in the studio audience were changing the channel.
Megyn Kelly, sharp as ever, didn't just highlight Kimmel's rebrand, she carved it open. She reminded audiences this was the same guy who once thought it was peak comedy to have women bounce on trampolines for laughs. And now he's the outrage. Police, canceling people for decade-old tweets. The irony was enough to power a small city grid. But Kelly didn't stop at irony, she lunged straight for the career landmine, Kimmel's blackface skit. Yes, that one. Dressed as NBA legend Karl Malone, Kimmel once painted himself in full blackface. Broadcast to millions. Back then, no one blinked. Today, that one clip could ignite a social media firestorm. Kelly didn't add commentary, she let the footage speak. Holding up a mirror that practically shouted, "He used to be America's tipsy uncle," she said. Now he wants to be its conscience. And the line hit like a gavel, delivered with all the chill of a therapist reading your embarrassing browser history. Devastating. The final act, revealing Kimmel's evolution from crass comic in costume to self-appointed defender of truth and justice.
Monday morning show with Stephanopoulos into the evening Academy Awards broadcast with Kimmel and ABC elevating, the blackface lovin' Kimmel. They, at the same time, fired Chris Harrison, host of The Bachelor, for trying to defend one contestant on The Bachelorette for saying, gee, I know I went to this antebellum party, a couple years ago. I guess I didn't see anything wrong with it. And all he said was, are we judging her by today's standards or are we judging her by, old standards, whatever. He was basically trying to say, are we being too hard on her? Got fired. Chris Harrison has to be fired by ABC. I don't know why, because he's not a committed leftist, because he's not out there more saying all the terrible things about Republicans that Jimmy Kimmel says. So this is them saying, we get it. We're an ally. right? And I guess maybe they're trying to make up with their racist past, for their racist past, without ever.
Kimmel, the same guy who built a career lampooning stereotypes, is now a lecture hall in a blazer, preaching justice like the internet can't Google his resume. Kelly went for his new persona like a surgeon with a grudge. She pointed to his latest role, debunker of fake news, guardian of facts. But the problem? He delivers fact checks with the confidence of someone who's never questioned himself. It's like a GPS yelling turn left. While craning into a tree, Kelly quipped. He fact checks the world, but skips the man in the mirror. It wasn't just a roast, it was a teardown. She compared his shaky moral high ground to a $39 coffee table, flimsy, unstable, and missing instructions. And she didn't just poke holes, she turned his credibility into a block of Swiss cheese and taped a note to it. Return to sender. Because when your moral platform is built on selective outrage and forgotten past, all it takes is one person pointing it out for the whole structure to collapse.
His career peaked with busty girls on trampolines. Now the only boob we see is him. He once co-hosted The Man Show. Now he's sobbing like he just watched Steel Magnolias 3 days into his menstrual cycle.
Kelly didn't just mention Kimmel's contradictions, she circled them in red, stamped them, and mailed them to every late-night viewer. Remember Megyn, blonde, brainy, banned from brunches in Manhattan for saying the quiet part out loud. She didn't shout, she didn't joke. She listed facts like a prosecutor reading charges. Skits from Kimmel's early days, full of cringe, now buried beneath his new persona. Jokes that once made Howard Stern blush scrubbed clean in the name of reinvention. Kelly didn't need a laugh track. Her cold, factual delivery was enough. The punch, she was right. There's something poetic about a guy who made fun of pop culture now preaching to it like a priest at a press junket. According to Kelly, Kimmel traded his raw edge for applause, the hollow kind that comes from studio audiences who wanted comedy but got a lecture on climate policy. Gutfeld was firing off fireworks. Kelly, she was citing precedent. She turned Kimmel's legacy into a courtroom exhibit, proof of Hollywood's selective memory.
We'll tell you, he's not the worst. The Daily Show has the worst ratings. They only have 366,000 people watching that show. During the Jon Stewart years, it was over 2 million. Now it's down to 300,000. Seth Meyers, absolutely dreadful. He doesn't even have 1 million, 778,000. I mean, for network television, this is, you don't have to pay for it. It's there when you turn on your TV, you plug it in. That's a dreadful number. Greg Gutfeld on cable, which you do have to pay for, it has more than double the numbers of Seth Meyers. Jimmy Kimmel, 1.5 million, averaging, also equally horrible.
Then came the darkest highlight reel, the blackface, the crude one-liners, the laughs mined from humiliation. Remember that. You're not supposed to, but Kelly did. And she didn't just remind viewers. She lit it up with commentary sharp enough to slice through carbon fiber. She called out Kimmel's moral preaching as set dressing on a rented pony. The same guy who once chased laughs by humiliating people, now wringing his hands on air over kindness and decorum. It wasn't just criticism, it was a mini-documentary with punchlines. And just as the dust settled, Gutfeld jumped in again, sarcasm in hand like a vintage bourbon, asking how someone can lose their comedic edge so completely. He now sounds like a campaign slogan in skinny jeans. Kelly nodded, not literally, but with another Kimmel clip dug up from his archives of awkward. And just when you thought late night couldn't get more earnest, in walked Kimmel with yet another trembly monologue, sounding less like a comic and more like a poet trapped in a blackout. Gutfeld, ever the sniper, stepped in with enough dry humor to make the walls peel. His verdict: Kimmel's shift wasn't growth, it was panic dressed up as purpose. TED Talk vibes minus the laughs.
Are experiencing deep mental pain. And it's not just them. Journalists are now offering tips to deal with their disappointment, frustration, even fear. And I get it. That's normal after any loss. I'm still mad about losing World's Sexiest Man to Johnny Depp. But why would people feel fear? Maybe because their only news sources are constantly telling them Trump's going to turn America into Germany. But you know who felt actual fear during the Biden administration? People who had to ride the subway.
And Gutfeld, the master of brutal honesty, landed the final blow with surgical sarcasm. It's not comedy if the audience claps just to prove you didn't cry. Translation: Kimmel's monologues aren't funny, they're moral PowerPoints. For people desperate to feel woke, Gutfeld didn't just mock the jokes, he demolished the premise. Watching Kimmel now, he said, is like seeing your old guidance counselor try stand-up, cringy, nervous, and constantly inserting climate stats between punchlines. And here's the twist: when Gutfeld becomes the voice of reason in Hollywood's funhouse, Something's gone seriously sideways. His roasting was chaotic, loud, irresistible. Kelly's takedown, quiet, surgical, graceful as a ballerina with a scalpel. Together, they didn't just expose Kimmel's cracks, they turned him into a case study in brand betrayal. And Jimmy? He said nothing. Maybe the applause drowned them out. Or maybe he thought silence would shield him. But the illusion shattered. Gutfeld mocked the hypocrisy of preaching truth while spreading spin. Kelly exposed the irony of canceling others while quietly bleaching your past. The punchline. Kimmel's transformation wasn't bold, it was strategic, driven by optics, not ethics. While Gutfeld joked about Kimmel's PR-fueled evolution, Kelly dropped the final truth. Jimmy isn't punching up. He's punching sideways, right where the studio tells him to. Once the rebel mocking Hollywood, he's now its poster. Boy full of guilt, tears, and moral speeches between luxury car ads. That's why their takedown hit so hard. They weren't mocking a man, they were mocking a brand overhaul, so fake it begged for satire. Gutfeld poured sarcasm like boxed wine at a school fundraiser. Kelly fired truth like missiles in a snowstorm. And Kimmel, he kept talking to a mirror reflecting only the version of himself he wanted to see. No punchline required because this time, Kimmel was the joke.